we're designed and created as a being to live in abundance. And abundance means having those resources, financial resources, not necessarily money all the time, but having the resources to ensure that if you wanted to make money, you can. Everything is a choice, but give us that choice and not let us think that living mediocre or just paying our bills is acceptable, because it doesn't have to be.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Plugging the Leaks, because broke is boring. I'm your host, Danyell Phillips. I'm a budget coach, curriculum creator, and the founder of My Money Enterprises, where we teach that budgeting isn't math, it's mindfulness. I want to thank Connie Davis with Maiden Explorations for the opportunity to participate in the Podcast Accelerator program. Thank you so much for creating a space for women like me to use our voices and turn purpose into platforms. All right, y'all. So this is our very first episode, and we're starting exactly where we need to with the leaks. Because before we can plug anything, we've got to understand what's actually dripping out. So when I say leak, I don't mean your roof or your faucet or even your car's radiator. I'm talking about the quiet little drips that drain your wallet, your time, and your energy without us even realizing it. Couple of examples would be the convenience stores runs that add up to hundreds of dollars, subscriptions that renew while you're asleep, DoorDash orders that feel like self-care until you see the total, $35 overdraft fees that hit when your balance dips for just even an hour, unused memberships, or my favorite is the science experiment groceries in the fridge that never got cooked. And most importantly is the mental fatigue that keeps us from checking in on our own money. So yes, leaks are about money, but they are also about energy, access, and survival. Every leak tells a story about exhaustion, scarcity, about trying to stretch a dollar in a system that is already leaky. So that's what this show is here to unpack: the why, the how, and the what now of money leaks. And today I am beyond excited to do this with one of my favorite people, Miss Lolita Dash-Pitts, the powerhouse behind Front Porch Community Development Association right here in South St. Pete. Lolita, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here. You've been doing this community work for over 20 years. Tell us, how did Front Porch CDA start and what pulled you into this kind of work?
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you and Connie for both having me here today to share these experiences and trials and tribulations with you. I really appreciate that. Front Porch began in 1999 as a Florida initiative by the then Governor Jeb Bush, who was in office. And it was a revitalization council that he structured. It was 20 within Florida to assist community residents with revitalizing their communities, whereas that could be community development, financial security, economic development, all those phases to make it a wholesome effort to eliminate those issues that were in those communities. But in 2001, the Revitalization Council acquired their 501c3 and became a nonprofit organization. And I've been on board since 2001 as the executive director. And the second answer to your question is what inspired me to do so? Well, St. Petersburg is my home. I'm born and raised here. And so I want to see the growth and sustainability of my city and my community. So that is what motivates me and keeps me going. And anywhere that I could provide some assistance and support to make sure that happens, I'm on board.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. And that's what I love to hear. You've been out here plugging the leaks before we even had language to call it that. You've been building structure for community stability while most folks were still figuring out the problem.
That's true.
So you serve the neighborhoods of 33705, 33711, and 33712, right?
Yes.
All right. And these are the zip codes that tell the real story about both resilience and struggle. Can you paint a picture for us? What does daily life look like for families right now in those opportunity zones?
Well, even document wise per the 2020 census, these zip codes have a high level of crime, unemployment, illiteracy rate, uh, teenage pregnancies, you name it, poverty. So these are the targeted zip codes within South St. Petersburg that the city and county municipalities have set aside funding to address the issues within these communities. So yeah, it's documented to be quite underserved and underrepresented.
Yeah, and that is powerful because it's one thing to talk about poverty, but it's another thing to understand the leaks that are keeping it going. So, what are the biggest leaks that you see hitting families again and again?
Well, I see payday loans. It keeps individuals constantly and they never feeling whole. I mean, it's devastating cycle wise. It's like, okay, we get the loan. I see residents get the loan, and by the time they're paid again, they're back in that same hole because they're paying the loan and still can't afford to pay their uh, necessary bills and expenses. And then nearly 100% of the low cost grocery stores like Save a Lot, Winn-Dixie are closed in these communities. So that makes it difficult for residents without transportation to obtain low cost groceries. I mean, how can they afford to go to places that are more expensive? Nothing against Publix and those higher level chains, but these residents can't afford that. And then additionally, the city's public transportation system is restructuring their public bus routes. And in doing so, they have removed many bus stops routes in the zip codes area. So we're talking, when we're saying, okay, well, you don't have transportation, so rely on your public transportation. Well, if they're removing these bus stops, then how are they even going to use the bus transportation and public transportation? So it's really, really an issue that needs to be addressed.
Right. And it sounds like that people are not really mismanaging their money, but they're really trying to navigate leaky systems.
Exactly.
Leaky
Work with
systems.
what
Yeah.
they can and what they have.
Exactly. So can you share a story, no names, of course, that really shows what these leaks are looking like in real life?
Well, one that comes to mind is our organization has an annual Christmas. We're going to retitle that holiday gifts giveaway event. This is our 9th year. And last year we served probably around 100 families and about 200 children from infant age to 17 years old. And when I say serve, we provide them with all new clothing, shoes, toys, educational supplies, jewelry, underwear, sleepwear, anything that that child really needs and can't afford to, the parents can't afford. So last year, what strikes me and really warmed my heart was one of the parents when she came to get the bag. They're all pre-bagged and customized for each child. So we go shopping individually for each child that we serve. And she got the bag and she looked in it and she literally fell down to the ground in tears because she says, I didn't know how I was going to provide joy and happiness during this holiday season. I was just going to, tell my kids that there is no Christmas, there is no Santa. And of course, we know what that does to small kids,
Sure.
and how that affects us mentally. So when she said that in tears, it just broke my heart. But also it was also me almost in tears with joy to know that we can actually, serve these individuals and make a difference, bring some joy and happiness, not just during the holiday season, but throughout 365 days a year.
And that is absolutely beautiful. And it just really sounds like you've got people out there doing everything right and still staying stuck. And that's kind of why we've created programs like TradeLandia and the Real Budget Experience, because we can't fix what we can't see that's leaking. So,
true.
Lolita, people are always asking, where does change happen? And my answer to that is simple. It happens right here with us. Change doesn't come from policy papers or pilot buzzwords. It starts with community anchors like Front Porch partnering with creators like My Money Enterprises to build the tools that actually make sense for the people that are using them. And so that's why I am so incredibly excited that Front Porch CDA is the first one to be piloting the TradeLandia right here in South St. Pete.
Yes, we're excited as well.
We are super excited about that. TradeLandia isn't your average financial literacy program. It's built on something called the TradeLandia teaching theory. It's a trauma-informed experiential learning model that blends emotional intelligence, storytelling, and hands-on play. So instead of us learning what to do with money, people feel what it means to make these decisions. And they barter, they trade, they spend, and they save. Then they talk through the emotions behind these choices. So, Lolita, your team has been holding space in this community for decades. You've been plugging leaks one family at a time. Now with TradeLandia, we get to take that wisdom and make it teachable, repeatable, and scalable. So, because this isn't actually a charity, it's about capacity. Together, we're creating a model that proves that when you build from within the community, change sticks. So, okay, Lolita, let's dream big for just a minute. If we could plug the major leaks across South St. Pete, if every family had access to this kind of education and support, what would South St. Pete look like 5 years from now?
Wow. That question takes a lot of thought. But I would tell you that being in this spectrum for over 2 decades, I would say financially stronger, economically and socially self-sustained, 50 to 75% increase in Black African American owned businesses, 90% increase in home ownership among minorities and people of color, which in turn would eliminate gentrification within these zip codes.
Oh my gosh, that is completely powerful. Because it's, plugging leaks is not just about saving money. It's about restoring hope and energy and dignity. So let's talk about budget coaching, money coach, financial coach. It's called a lot of different things in the world, in the space. But what do you think that some of your community members might benefit from?
Well, again, Danyell, our focus and emphasis is on youth and young adults because, as I said, they are our future. And we focus on this by providing financial literacy, education training, giving them hands-on entrepreneurship interaction with small business owners. Also, we're getting ready to launch our Youth Bankable Future, which is very essential because it's not about banking, but it has an extensive curriculum that aligns with your program as well. And we allow the youth to learn and absorb that knowledge about what are FICO scores, why is it important, why is your credit score important, how saving is an advantage and not a disadvantage, and how even investments, even at your early stage, on how vital investing could be to not only that youth but their entire family and the community as well. So again, that what we're bringing together in our collaboration, what we're doing is essential, is needed because our youth, and not just youth, adults, some of our older adults need to know this information as well because they've been lost in the shuffle and they think, oh, well, I'm in this hole. I'm going to be in this hole forever. And that's not true. If you provide them with the training and education they need, then they can get out of that rut and they can see sunshine on the other side.
Yeah, in my coaching experience, I run into a lot of different leaks, and I've coached adults and women, in their adulthood. But what I've learned is that a lot of the gaps and the missing information around our financial understanding, they're being seen across the board. It's not just children, it's adults, it's even older adults who have been doing this money thing for decades and decades. And so that's why I really thought that there has to be a way to bring the education instead of just sitting people in a chair, instead of just lecturing at them.
That's true.
Trying to bring a way for people to learn where it actually sticks. I met an adult not too long ago, and we were talking about some money terms, and we were talking about interest, for example. And this person was able to explain to me what interest was when you put money into the bank account and you were saving money. And then I flipped the script a little bit and asked if they knew what interest meant in a debt scenario. And there was no understanding on it. And it really just opened something up for me that said, there's more need out there, and it needs to start in our schools. It needs to start with our youth, but
That's true.
we can't get away from the fact that these adults are still out here trying to survive without it.
Well, and I would like to add to that is, especially within these zip codes that we're specifically speaking on today, these adults have the mindset, we have to change the mindset of making a dollar. And as long as we're okay with spending that dollars and our necessity bills are paid, then we're living large. And that's not living. We're designed and created as a being to live in abundance. And abundance means having those resources, financial resources, not necessarily money all the time, but having the resources to ensure that if you wanted to make money, you can. Everything is a choice, but give us that choice and not let us think that living mediocre or just paying our bills is acceptable, because it doesn't have to be.
No, I don't think that we should be living in a world where survival is acceptable.
Exactly.
Not maybe I said that wrong, but just survival is acceptable. We should have the ability to use our own personal assets and our value to, elevate in the world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so when you are taking on programs and stuff for the Front Porch CDA and involving your participants, what is what do you do, and what is your form of getting the word out and notifying your participants that there's new programs going on around? How are we notifying the community and some of the community leaders?
Okay, well, first of all, after and during each program that we implement and facilitate, we do comprehensive surveys, interaction, Q&A, so that we can obtain that from participants, number one, because it's important that they communicate with us to let us know what's needed, what's not working, what's working. And then outside of that, we have to be politically engaged. I don't like using that word, but we have to. We have to get the local municipalities, your city, the mayor, even his assistants, even the housing department. It doesn't necessarily have to be for you, but getting all those team players at the table is vital. And having a voice. What I do is I make sure, I may not make every city council meeting, but I try to at least attend. If I don't do it monthly, every other month, because that way I'm keeping abreast of what's going on, what policies are being changed or implemented, and that's vital. And then it also gives me an opportunity, because as a resident here in St. Pete, not just a leader, we're given 3 minutes to speak on an issue or a situation. So I utilize that, to use my voice when I'm speaking holistically for those that we serve. So that's very, very vital. And when I talk to these policyholders and policymakers, I tell them that creating and executing policies that that's beneficial to specifically low income, unrepresented communities. Example, we mentioned earlier, establishing grocery stores. If you're taking low cost grocery stores out of our community, what are you replacing those stores with?
Right.
Is it new development? Is it low housing, affordable housing? What is it? Because when you take something away and you don't replace it, then there's still a void there. Or if you're not replacing it with what's needed, it's still a void. Yeah. So we have to have constant communication, invite them, when we're having certain initiatives, invite them to come in, sit in on a session or an event or a workshop, or tune in to, if it's virtual, tune in to see what we're doing and what effect and processes are we using to make sure that we're serving the community and serving them in the capacity where they need to be served. So it's vital that these policyholders and these policy makers and these community leaders, I don't want to just talk about the county, city, municipalities, but other community leaders that's running these other organizations. Let's work together. Unity brings forth an enormous amount of power and an enormous amount of outcomes, positive outcomes. So it's important. It's like we don't have that I, me, my attitude or mindset, but this is ours, us, they,
100%.
together.
100%. So when you talk about policymakers and community leaders and that, do you think they have a true understanding of some of the gaps that are going on out there? All of them, of course, but specifically some of the financial literacy that are just not being offered and educated on out there.
I think they do, but sometimes they turn the ear. Um, Maybe out of fear, maybe just lack of concern, maybe because it's not affecting them financially, emotionally, socially. So, of course, when we're being affected by anything, a situation, circumstance, we take hold of that. We take ownership. If we're not affected, it doesn't mean anything. I don't care what's going on in 33705, 11, and 12. I live in 33701, and our community is fine. So we got to change that. Seriously, we have to change the mindset, and it goes back to unifying and working together and uplifting the community as a whole, uplifting the city as a whole.
I totally agree. And, taking the mindset that people outside of those opportunity zones are not thinking about it. It brings me to a coin phrase that goes around in my world. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Because those people are rippling out into those other communities. And I think they need to be more aware of what's going on. Maybe it's not in their own backyard, but it's rippling into their backyard.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And I spoke of gentrification earlier, and being born and raised in the city. And I myself live in the 33711 zip code. And I could tell you, 10 years ago, I can walk out my house and not see someone not of my color, and I accepted that. Now, today I walk out and, it's populated with Caucasians, Asians, Mexicans, so and a lot of those, African and Black, African American, or people of color, because of the economy and the direction is going, they are forced out, and they can't afford to live in these communities where they grew up in, where their grandmother, lived, or their parents lived. And if their parents by chance have to transition and die off, they're selling these properties off and not looking at the legacy of, I'm maintaining and I'm going to keep, this in my family, and they don't value it because I don't know. It goes back to, is it fear? Is it just not having the compassion and not caring?
Blinders.
Yeah.
Blinders. They're not
And it's
looking
sad.
outside of that. Yeah. Wow.
So Danyell, I have a question for you. I provided you with some examples of what we need here in our community to make it better financially, socially, economically. These issues I see on a day-to-day level, and that's what if and how would you respond to my inquiry as far as reducing the number of fast food and food deserts and replacing them with healthy food eateries, providing more low-cost family entertainment outlets, for example, movie theaters, skating rinks, something that the family could do together and not cost an enormous amount of money. And then also, I think we would have more pride and utilize our neighborhood community parks and recreation centers if there was some type of beautification and enhancement put in to where it's family oriented and it makes that family proud to go and visit and be a part of those facilities. What is your thought on that? How?
I am very pro encouraging no cost activities. And so in my mind, there is when we spend money, even if it's on fast food or junk food or quick DoorDash type things, we get a little bit of a dopamine hit. Like we spend money and it gives us an elevation. And there is more things that you can do that don't cost money to get that same reaction in your body, that you don't have to go out and spend the money. I think moving some of the people from the yucky foods, the fast foods and all of those things, I think it's more than just a financial literacy thing. I think there needs to be some health education in that and show them that not only are they throwing their money away, but they're feeding their bodies really yucky stuff. As far as beautifying the neighborhoods, I think that is amazing, but you're also providing a place for these families and these, children, all the people, the participants of your programs, we're providing them with a place and an activity that is not going to drain their budgets.
That's true. Do you have any examples of any families that maybe you, put that mindset into and what was the outcomes of that? I mean, within your program or just personally interacting with any?
I do have some examples. I have a particular client that she's a spender. She loves to spend money, and I'm really working on her. We've worked on lists of no spend items, and sometimes it's just a matter of she's like, well, I'm going to take my daughter to the mall, and okay, well, that's great. Why don't you take your daughter to the park and feed the ducks or have a
Good
picnic?
example.
And so it really is a mind shift, like understanding, because her first instinct is to just swipe her card. That's what we do. But that's not really teaching her daughter anything either, because at 6 years old, she's like, okay, well, when I want something or I want to have fun, we must have to spend money.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so at the beginning of the episode, we talked about what is a leak. And we talked about a couple of things and a couple of examples. Lolita, did we answer any of those questions? And if so, is there anything that you can take back to your community?
Given thought to that, Danyell, as I stated before, and I really emphasize that, learn early, execute early. So those leaks of where we've been conditioned to where we're consumers, we need to change that mindset to what of our experiences? How are those experiences affecting our emotions? How are our emotions affecting our experiences? And what are the repercussions if we don't utilize that correctly? Will that keep our community at a standstill? Will we not be self-sustainable? Will we not grow as a community? So those are the things that I would definitely want to implement, especially with the younger generation, change their mindsets. Let them know that the training and education they acquire, don't just sit on that, utilize it. Think about it. Think and see and visualize, if I do utilize these methods or the training I receive, how is that going to affect me in the future? How's that going to benefit me? How's that going to allow me to grow? So definitely the financial literacy education, quasi the experiences that we allow these individuals to get. Like I said, we're not just talking about youth and young adults, but as you mentioned, even the elderly, even adults, you know, uh, young adults, old adults, they still need this education and training. You can never learn enough. My parents always taught me, when you give up on learning and utilizing your experiences throughout life, then you've lost. The game is over.
100%, 100%. And for me, I really firmly believe that financial literacy, economic empowerment, it's not just a class. It's not just a 1 hour or a 3 hour or even a 3 month. This is a lifelong lesson that not only needs to be taught all throughout the life, but practiced and experienced all throughout life. It never ends. That gets us into a whole nother can of worms with the past, present, and future of money, because money is going in a different direction.
Yes.
But and so I just think it's a lifelong learning experience.
Yes. And I want to add, we have to ignite that hunger. We have to give community that thirst of hunger and excitement. It's so much distrust and unbelief now in the world. And so using that to our advantage and saying, look, yeah, it's a lot going on, but life goes on too. It doesn't stop.
100%.
And so if we don't provide some type of effort and faith, I'm a firm believer of faith, and we're serious about what we do. We don't know what we don't know until we don't know it.
Right.
That sounds like a cliche, but that's the real thing. So, we got to ignite that hunger and that thirst to learn, to want to live better, to want to be financially stable within our
Exactly.
households and within our communities. That's the only
Exactly.
way to go.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing that. So before we wrap up, Lolita, what message would you give to two groups listening right now? First would be families fighting to get ahead, and the second group would be funders who say that they want to invest in community change.
Okay. The response to your first question is uniting, I would inform families, regardless of their financial status, their social economic status, but tell them that uniting collaboratively, working together ensures greater impact by expanding service territories and increasing the numbers of individuals served. And then secondly, by providing I was told stakeholders, city, county, even state and federal municipalities, by providing financial education and empowerment training to youth who are our future within these communities, promotes economic sustainability. And my motto is learn early, execute early.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And that is exactly why this show exists, because every leak tells a story and every story has the power to shift a system. Okay, so do you have any events going on? What do you got going on in the world today? And how do people find you? How do they engage with Front Porch CDA?
Well, thank you. Yes, we are in the process of launching our Youth Bankable Future initiative, which we're looking to launch that and implement and facilitate that probably March, April of 2026. Well, we're looking to serve 15 to 20 students or young adults, youth, 12 to 17 years old, and kind of educate them on what we've discussed here today.
Sure.
And so we do focus on those youth that reside and live in those zip code targeted areas, because that's the most needed populated area right now. So we're looking to launch that. We also have a youth health and wellness program, because here at Front Porch, we truly believe you can't do anything and be successful at anything if you're not healthy, physically, mentally, socially. So all of it to be holistic. We always have a youth health component when we implement any program, not only for youth, but any programs we implement, we also include some type of health and wellness component, because it has to be holistic. So if anyone that's listening today and in the future would like to reach out to us, we can be contacted through Facebook, which is www.frontporchcda.org, or contact me by email, lolita@frontporch@gmail.com, or you can even give me a call or text at 727-804-2868.
Thank you so much. And I do believe that we will also be dropping all those links in the show notes, so people will have all that information to find you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me and allow me to have this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Lolita, for being our guest, a collaborator, and a community partner. If you're listening, you can download the Top 50 Money Leak tool. There'll be a link in the show notes. So you can start finding your own leaks and be part of this movement, because broke is boring, but awareness, that's a power move. I'm your host, Danyell Phillips. This is Plugging the Leaks, because broke is boring.
Thank you.